Hey, Carol, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The sun's finally out here in northern Michigan. It's above 60 degrees, so life is good.
Same here, 80s and sunny. I'll take it.
Nice, nice. All right, so let's just dive in. So you have spent decades in sheltering, rescue, as well as behavior. So you have a lot of different experience. What originally, we all have our origin story, right? So, what originally drew you to this work, to working with animals?
No, I can't really say there was a defining point, but I had worked with animals for years. I had done rescue. And, you always hear, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life, I believe the saying is. And, I kind of got caught up in the corporate world and just really wanted something that was a little bit more fulfilling and, fed my soul. And so I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I did something completely different. So I ended up going to work at a shelter that I'd done some volunteering with. A position opened up, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll check it out. And that kind of changed everything for me. I never looked back. Went to the nonprofit world, and I don't think I would ever again work for a for profit. I really, really like working for an organization that has a purpose, a meaning, and, doing something that hopefully leaves the world a little bit better place than we found it.
It really does make a huge difference, right? So, someone who's worked in, I wouldn't say corporate America, but, regular, different kind of jobs, there's something about animal work that just like keeps pulling you back. It's difficult, but it's that meaning and that purpose that I think some of us just literally like oxygen, like need to have in our lives.
I would agree. And I think that, I like a lot of people who've done behavior, they've grown up in like 4-H and had horses and always knew they were going to do this stuff. Not me.
Mm.
I had none of that. So I kind of came at in a different way. I feel like a lot of people that I meet that have done behavior been like, oh, I knew I wanted to be a vet, or I knew, or I've been in 4-H since I was a child, or, I had a horse when I was 8, and that really wasn't my path. So I kind of, I adopted a dog. My life was changed, adopted another dog. So I'd honestly say, it was probably the dogs that kind of brought me there. And,
Mm.
and I'd get a little more involved in rescue. And then, then that led me to a shelter, and it just kind of kept growing and growing, and it almost consumed me, but in a
Yeah.
good way. But also, as we're here to talk about, can be extremely challenging too, because it's emotional work. If you don't return that call, we're not selling car parts or
Right.
dealing with pieces of equipment. So, when we don't take a call, or when we don't maybe do something on a weekend, we think, what are the ramifications of that?
Mhm.
And it's a little bit
Yeah.
different when you're dealing with, any type of life. I'm sure human life too, but animal life.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, yes, it is incredibly rewarding. It is mission driven, but that does come with a cost. And yes, that is why we're here today, because we want to open up these conversations, because I think a lot of people, even to this day, I think are still suffering in silence. I mean, I think it's getting better. We're getting the word out there. But back in the day, I don't know about you, but we weren't talking about it.
We
And
didn't know about it,
no, no,
you
you're
know?
right. We didn't even have a name for it. So how are you going to talk
No.
about it when you don't even know what's actually going on? So was there kind of like a specific moment or moments that you can remember that you realized, oh wow, like this, I love this work, but it's impacting me more than I thought. What did that look like in real life for you? So not just professionally, but also personally.
Well, I think it was somewhat gradual for me, and like it probably is for a lot of people. I don't know that there was a defining moment, but I would say, I'm a very high energy, high drive person. And I would say, like, I was exhausted. And, when somebody said, oh, but what do you mean you're exhausted? I'm like, well, I'm emotionally exhausted, I would say. not physically exhausted. You know that exhaustion when you've had a good day at the beach, out in the sun, or hiking? Like that's a good exhaustion. But I would always try to describe it as, like I'm emotionally exhausted, I'm just spent. And I really didn't have, I don't think, an understanding or a full grasp of how to even vocalize what I was feeling. But I knew that I was tired emotionally. And, as I learned through people like yourself and other professionals that, self care. Oh, yeah, I do self care. I'll go for a massage here and there. I'll do this or whatever. I go to the chiropractor. But it's not something you do when you're hurting. It's something you have to really work at if you're going to be in this industry. And although we talk about balance, really, it's not even balance because that should come first. We use the word balance, and I do too. Don't get me wrong, but we really have to think about how we take care of ourselves because we give, and we really don't realize sometimes. I don't think that the tank is empty until till the warning light is on. For me, it wasn't really a huge health thing, but I've heard of people having that. It wasn't a huge defining moment of crash, but I would say it was a gradual decline in my energy and feeling emotionally exhausted and having a hard time even verbalizing that to somebody who wasn't in the industry.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, and that's one of the reasons I like to have a whole variety of guests on this show is because, like, my symptoms of compassion fatigue look different than your symptoms, and your symptoms look different from the guest before and the next guest, right? And so, one conversation that I also, or not a conversation, but one thing that I like to also kind of promote on this show is how compassion fatigue not just shows up differently for different people, but some of the unique things that maybe are more common in like different sectors of animal welfare. And so, one of the things that you specialize in with your behavior work is aggression and trauma. And so, how do you think that working with these types of cases kind of uniquely impact your mental health, say, compared to other areas of animal welfare? Because you have done sheltering and rescue in the past. So, how would you say that behavior is maybe a little bit different?
It definitely is different, and I've had to navigate it a little differently. I thought, oh, it's very similar, but it really isn't. With the shelter work, we see a lot of, you talk about secondary trauma. I mean, where we see the abuse or neglect of others and how that can impact us, and we don't even realize that. But with the shelter, there was a lot of compassion for the animals, and there was compassion for the staff and the volunteers too, very much so. This is a whole nother layer because sometimes I'm dealing with people where there might be conflict in the home, like the husband is done, wants to get rid of the dog. Okay. Or the family can't have visitors. Or they can't go on vacation because they can't leave their dog and they're crying because, this dog has a bite history and things like that. So I'm dealing with a lot more of the human element almost in some ways than I did at the shelter. Because although I worked with volunteers and staff, and don't get me wrong, my heart went out to them and the work they do, and I commend them. But I wasn't sitting across like you and I are speaking from somebody who's crying. And I have a great vet I work with. She always says, it's not a good consultation if somebody cries. And I get what she means. It could be good or bad. I mean, sometimes we're tears of happiness. We've seen this progress, but sometimes it's tears because they're saying, my family's at risk. I love this dog. I need some relief. Or I just adopted this dog. I can't rest at night. Somebody recently told me, I'm getting really good at going to the gym because they rescued a dog, bless their heart, special needs, and wonderful home. But just like, it's almost more comforting for me to be at the gym than be home with my dog right now because I'm struggling, and to watch somebody who opened their heart and their home to a rescue and then didn't sign up for all this and kind of thought love can fix this, and one of the things I always talk about, and I love to give credit where credit's due, but I can't remember who told me this, but they said, if you think about it, what do mattresses and dogs have in common? And I thought, well, that's the dumbest thing, nothing, and they said, people get a mattress every 10 to 15 years. People get a dog every 10 to 15 years. So these people come to me with these aggression cases, they got their dog 15 years ago. Times were a little bit different then. We have more technology. We have, I feel like, less time. We have more stress and anxiety in our world. Now they got this dog and they're sitting across from me, really wanting to make this work, but they're struggling. Their dog's struggling too. And, that's why they're there to see me. But I don't think I really realized when I started doing aggression work how much the people part would impact me,
Yeah,
you know?
and I have to imagine, I mean, you're dealing with situations where, like you said, the husband's done or the dog has a bite history. Do we need to euthanize this dog? What are we doing? That's a lot of pressure on you.
It is. It really is. And you know that the situation is workable, but you also know it's going to take everybody in the family to be on board, and it's going to take a high level of commitment. And this person needs support. So yes, I'm balancing trying to help the dog and get their behavior plan in place, but I'm also always trying to motivate the person and be there for them and help them celebrate little wins. And you know how our brain works. We have the negativity bias, but sometimes helping that person find the good in their dog, because at this point, sometimes trust is broken. I mean, there's really no quicker way than having a dog with aggression to sometimes break a little bit of that trust and that bond.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the general public has a misconception of animal welfare in general. But I think, especially when it comes to behavior work, they just think, oh, you just train cute little puppies to sit, stay, what an easy gig. But
Um,
I mean, let's talk about trauma, right? So, where does trauma show up in these animals, and how does that affect the humans who are trying to help them? Again, you specialize in aggression and traumatized dogs. Can you speak more to that?
yes. So I'm seeing so many dogs that have experienced trauma, and often people come to me and they're like, "Oh, my dog just jumps a lot and is really excited," and there's these little buzzwords that always jump out at me. Oh, really high energy. They show up and the dog is really, really high on what we call the fear, anxiety, stress scale. And the dog isn't just jumping, the dog is in a state of high arousal and really can't regulate their emotions. And it's kind of because, just like the human brain, I mean, we used to always think, I grew up in a time where we thought dogs lived in the moment. Oh, I want those rose colored glasses back, as I joke, because they don't. I mean, their brain processes things just like yours and mine, we're learning now. And the more we learn, I mean, it's so fabulous what we're learning, but it also makes us take a step back and realize that, wow, these dogs are really having a hard time. They have been in a shelter, in another rescue, transported halfway across the country, experienced neglect, rehoming, you name it. Okay. All the things, that are not recommended that you do with your dog. And then this well-meaning adopter thinks they just have a jumpy, overexcited, high energy dog because, again, their last dog, 15 years ago, they forgot, a little bit. And, I see the dog and really it's a dog that can't regulate their emotions. So it's really a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a child who is throwing a tantrum. It's like the child is not intentionally doing this. They're dysregulated. And especially if you have a child who has a trauma history, they're not going to be able to regulate themselves very easily, and neither is a dog.
And these dogs, just like humans, I mean, the brain can, as we know, it's very plastic. It can restructure. We can change that. But as we know, it takes time. It's not a quick fix. And if you think about even like you and I mean, we know why we may be doing something. We know why it's important, whether it's to eat right or to do some behavior, and we still struggle.
Yeah.
The dog doesn't necessarily see that. I mean, the dog's living just trying to survive. Their brain and our brain is designed to keep us alive and look for threats in the environment. And a lot of times their brain is misfiring because everything has become now the bear in the woods because, they can't distinguish between what's a threat and what is reality. I mean, the husband coming down the stairs for breakfast every morning can trigger some of these dogs. And it's like a trauma response, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so, between kind of seeing these dogs who are obviously distressed, and then you're seeing the humans that are also distressed. So you've been doing this a while, as well as, like I said, the rescue and the shelter work. And so you've been exposed to a lot yourself, a lot of trauma, a lot of grief yourself. And so we were talking a little bit earlier about self care. And one of the kind of the biggest lessons that I've learned, at least for myself, and now I'm trying to like preach to the world, is there's a difference between self care and coping skills. So self care is the ongoing things that you have to do, whereas a coping skill is more like, oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. I need to calm myself down right now. So from what I know of you, you have a lot of different coping skills and self care strategies to help you manage your compassion fatigue. So I know that you've mentioned exercise, yoga, hobbies, and creativity. So I would love to know specifically because I love to find out like what different people do in order to like have that kind of outlet, right? In order to relax and recharge and let off some steam. So I would love to know, like in particular, what hobbies that you have and how are you creative and how do those things help you?
Yeah, I would like to think I'm creative, but so there's a couple things I do. First of all, and again, I hate to use the word balance because I truly feel it's not about balance as much as making your priorities your priorities. But on one end of the spectrum, I work with aggression. The other end of the spectrum is I do things I love with training, like scent work. I
Mm,
do fun, basic training, for the average person who just got a puppy or a dog. So I kind of do the two ends of the spectrum. So this really helps me balance out this because I can only professionally take so many aggression cases per month. Or I joke my head would pop. But so I would say now, although I'm not great at it, I am better and not letting myself get to the point where I need those coping skills
mm,
by doing the regular self care. So for me, movement's a big one. And I know that about myself. I have a trampoline, I walk, I do yoga. So for me personally, movement really helps, and I think I joke I'm like a dog, we always say stationary positions are hard when a dog is stressed, you know what I mean? And if you've read the books like Zebras Don't Get Ulcers and things like that, many animals in the wild move to close their stress cycle. I joke, that's me. So I find like, even if it's just a quick 5-minute walk between clients, you know, my goal is to have enough self care scheduled into my life that I don't end up needing that life preserver or that coping skill. I'm sure I have them, but I've been better, I would say, the last 10 years or so about being proactive and not reactive and doing the yoga, doing the walk. It might just be that walk after dinner. It might just be a quick 10-minute yoga video. People always say, I can't meditate. I can't meditate. There's something called yoga nidra, which is a meditation where you actually have to listen because they talk about you go through your body parts, right hand, left hand. And so for the person whose brain always is jumping around, it really teaches good focus. So, I mean, there you can do those in 5 or 10 minutes and still gain some of the benefits. We have studies now, we might have sounded like the crazy hippie people years ago, but forest bathing, there's studies behind that.
mhm.
Listening to the sound of birds, there's studies behind that now, and how I believe it's like the benefits from like listening to birds. I'm a study geek. Can like for 8 hours, they can impact your mental health, your mental wellness by listening to birds for a little while. So, I'll try to do some work outside, check my emails. I work outside quite frequently. just to try to combine things and hopefully get to the point where I'm doing enough self-care that I don't always have to pull to the coping skills.
I love that. And I think that's like, I don't know, like for me, like that's the ultimate goal, right? To be able to do enough proactive work to the point where you're not even needing, like you said, that life preserver. And one of the things that you said that I think is like really, really interesting is the trampoline, right? So I personally don't have a trampoline. It's something I thought would always be kind of cool to have. So what we know about like trauma and like managing trauma, processing trauma, healing from trauma is that the brain and the body love movement. So whether you are walking, whether you are bouncing around on that trampoline, that is like a rhythmic movement that the brain just craves in order to process
Mhm.
trauma. So I think that's so interesting how like you were
Yes.
just like naturally drawn to that.
Right. Well, I mean, what do we do when we have a baby crying? What do we
We
instinctually
rock.
do? Movement. Okay. And I don't
Yep.
know if you can see behind me, but I have a swing in my living room. What is that? It's movement.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay. And it faces outside where I can see the sunset. So
Love
I
it.
am, that was a temper tantrum I had probably 20 years ago. It was like 4th of July. I was watching everybody's dog. Everybody went out of town to party and left me their dogs. And here I was, box fans everywhere. We didn't have technology like we do now where I'm not going to say her name and she'll play music. So, all the sound machines going and, all the windows closed. And I said, this is ridiculous. And I ordered my chair. I'm like, I'm putting that chair right in my living room.
I love it.
What
I
is it?
love it.
It's that rhythmatic movement.
Yeah.
And I will literally get in there and you will see me like 5 minutes in that chair and I am like a baby in a swing.
Yeah.
So I think instinctually used movement probably all my life. I don't know. Maybe we all do. I don't know. But I have really worked to incorporate it into my life. I have a vibration plate. I have a trampoline. I've upgraded my trampoline. I live in Wisconsin. So I know you can appreciate a little bit the cold. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I do not really like cold weather. So again, it's that rhythmatic pattern.
Yeah. It sounds like you have like some things that you can do with movement both inside and outside. So after everything that you've seen, and like I said, you've been doing this work in some capacity for a while now. One of the things that we know that can help to kind of manage compassion fatigue is compassion satisfaction. And so, what still gives you a sense of purpose or fulfillment in this work?
Sometimes you have to look for it. I mean, our brain is no different. We're not exempt from the negativity bias.
Yeah.
I think we really have to look for it. I look for the progress. Look at where we come from. I video my clients a lot and I say, look at where we were. I'll show them the video. Look at, they don't live with this day in and day out, so they might not see the progress. I said, look at how your fear, anxiety, stress score is down. Look at your video when you came to see me 2 months ago or a month ago versus today. Look where we're at. I mean, look at the progress. Last week, I got 2 really nice thank you notes from clients, like personal, old school handwritten that said, you changed our life. We were in a really bad place when we
Oh,
got the dog. Nicest couple, but they got a dog from a pet store and he's been a little bit more than they anticipated. And that dog has clearly had some early trauma. They got the dog beyond the socialization window. So there's, lot to unpack there. But, getting people to see their dog in a different light, getting them to
mm,
see the progress, getting them to see that some of these things are breed tendencies. We're going through the whole right now, the big beagle rescue. And, I'm, hearing everybody, oh, they're stubborn, they're this, they're that. You know what? They're a hunting dog that was bred to hunt independently. So I love for when people understand their dog's genetics and purpose and see their dog in a different light and you understand that, okay, my dog had trauma. My dog is this breed. Now we've combined this and this is what we have. So let's understand it and work with what we have. And when they connect those dots, it's just beautiful. Their relationship changes, their understanding of the dog, their progress starts, taking hold. Their behavior plan sticks because, we're not changing dogs' behavior. We're
Right.
having to change our behavior.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
love that.
it's that part. And, so many people get into this business saying, oh, I don't really like people, I want to work with dogs. Well, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
we are in the motivating people business. We are in the understanding people business. We are in the listening and being compassionate with people business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So it's just the progress on both ends of the leash.
Oh, I love that. And so if you have a time machine and you could sit down with your younger self on day one in this field, what would you have said to her?
Mm. Take care of yourself. Find out what works for you. Schedule it. For me, that usually means not watching the news.
Mm,
Work to find the good in everything and hang on to it. Think about it. Read it. It's not just what you think, it's what you take in, it's who you surround yourself with, it's what you read, it's what you watch. I love to laugh, so I watch a lot of comedies. I love music, so I go, I hear music. So, you have to really take a holistic approach, in my opinion, to your health and don't get so consumed. There's always going to be somebody in need. Don't get so consumed that you lose sight of who you are and what you need to continue to do this. Very few people stay in it very long.
I love what you said about like, don't lose sight of who you are because this, whether it's shelter work or veterinary work or behavior work, that's a part of you. There's other parts too. And so it's about nourishing all of those parts.
Right. And when I was at the shelter, I learned this the hard way. Again, I would have told my old self this, that this is just me. Somebody else might be completely different. I needed 2 days away to decompress. Okay. And a lot of times people don't get that because they might have one day off in the middle of the week and one day off on the weekend. For me, particularly when I was in it longer, I needed 48 hours away to be able to be creative again, to be able to recharge my battery. Now, somebody else, maybe they can do it in a day. But for me, I really found that I needed to almost schedule that. Sure, there was weeks she didn't get it, but knowing that, how long it took my battery, think about your cell phone. Most of us know how long our cell phone takes to charge. Okay. But we don't know how long our battery takes to charge. And that would probably be one of the most important lessons I would say I would tell my early self. Learn how long it takes your battery to recharge. Don't let it get empty. Be proactive about it.
Yeah, it's funny. We're more proactive about making sure our phones are charged than ourselves, which
Mhm.
I find interesting. But I'm
Oh,
certainly guilty of that too. I am by no means a guru on this. I don't have this all figured out.
oh
I'm
no,
still a
not
work in progress. I think we probably all are.
right.
Um, but yeah, it's so important to know what your limits are, right? Know what your limits are so you can set those boundaries and say to yourself, okay, I know myself well enough that I need 48 hours to recharge. And like other people listening, you know, get to know your limits because you might be one of those people who's like, no, no, I need like a day here and then a day here, you know? And so, Carol, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience and all the ways that you are now taking care of yourself in order to make this career, this lifestyle sustainable for you. And so, if people would like to learn more about you or your services, where should they go?
Thank you. And one last thing I guess I wanted to say, if you don't mind, because you made me
Sure.
think of something you said. You're right. We talk about decompression in dogs all the time. I'm hearing this word. Even the general public talks about it now, which I love. I love that we've gotten that message out. But we need to get the message out about decompressing with us. We forget that piece. We talk about it with the dogs. We understand it. You know, you'll hear little sayings about it and everything, but we don't talk about it enough with us. If people want to reach me, I'm at Carol's Canine Training and Behavior Counseling. I am in Wisconsin. I do virtual. I have clients all over the country, a couple in the UK, but all over the country. And that's me. And I guess I just want to thank you because you are doing such a great service. I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Sophia Yin years ago, who
Mm.
really was a pioneer in us having better understanding and has left us a legacy that people like you carry on.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm gonna cry. So I thank you because you're not just helping like this person or maybe a couple people here and there that you're interviewing or all the people that listen to your podcast. You're really, it's a domino effect and you are helping so many people because
oh,
these lessons will keep people in this industry and prevent burnout and help them continue to care for themselves so they can care for others. So I thank you for, carrying on her legacy. She set a foundation and people like you have continued it and helped carry it forward and helped us be better at what we do for the animals in our life. It's, we love them and we've got to take care of ourselves though.
yeah. Oh,
So
well,
thank
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really
you. Yeah.
appreciate it. All
Yeah.
right. Well, you go out and enjoy the rest of this beautiful weather. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to take the dogs and the goat for a nice little walk here.
I don't okay, I don't have the
Yeah.
goat. I've done goat yoga, but I
Like who
don't have the
doesn't take their
goat.
goat for a walk? All right, Carol, it's been great talking with you. Take care of
Great
yourself, okay?
talking to you, and thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Bye bye.